All right, what's up, guys? This is Pablo and Jake with the Dead Pundit Society. This is episode one of hopefully an ongoing series. To give a little background context, Pablo and I are longtime friends. We've known each other since university, and we both are huge football fans. I'd say it makes up at least 40 to 50% of what we talk about. Yeah,
Yeah.
Pablo, take it away.
Yeah. So as Jake said, we've known each other for a long time now, and over the years, our football discussions have been the subject of many debates, and so we hope that you'll enjoy some of these as we bring them to you.
Yeah. All right. So what we're going to do today is a rank these five things related to football topics. So we'll each get a look at, for example, five players or five teams, five managers, things like that, and then decide on our own personal ranking and then spend a little bit of time discussing it and comparing our rankings. So without further ado, getting into it. All right, cool. So the first thing we're starting off with is rank these five World Cup winning teams. Um, I came up with the prompts. I thought about going further in history, but I thought the most fun thing would be to do the five most recent ones. And so that includes Argentina in 2022, France 2018, Germany 2014, Spain 2010, and Italy 2006. So we're each going to take a minute here and just write our lists and then see what we come up with. I think there might be some disagreements, but we'll see. All right, good to go.
All right. Yeah, good to
All
go.
right,
I guess we'll start
three,
with our
two,
number five, or
one. You want? No, I
oh
think we should
wait.
just do a reveal and then see where we
Oh,
land.
okay. Wait. Let me write it down then properly because I just had like notes written down.
I think there's going to be accusations of bias when we do this, but hopefully we'll each get the chance to explain our points of
I
view.
think we'll get the yeah to defend our position.
All right, here you go. This is my top. Oh shoot, this is my top five. I've got
Uh,
Spain
okay.
2010, France 2018, Germany 2014, Italy 2006, and then Argentina 2022.
Yeah, and this is mine. So I've got Spain
Yeah.
number one, Italy number two, Germany number three, France number four, and Argentina number five.
Okay,
So maybe
what's
we
good?
start with the
Yeah.
points of agreement. So I think Argentina number five, that has to
Yeah,
be the
definitely.
worst team in my opinion, maybe one of the worst teams to ever win the World Cup. I think just the fact that they managed to win the World Cup with several players that were over the hill. You know, they were playing like Otamendi as a kind of starting player. Dibu Martinez as well has really suffered from World Cup inflation, as I like to put it, because
Yeah.
everyone thought he was like the best keeper in the world for a while after that. I mean, obviously, they have some of the best players we've ever seen, right? Oh, one Messi had a great World Cup, but I think they were kind of a team that went through more on determination than actual quality, right? Like the kind of,
Yeah.
South American grit. But yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it.
No, I fully agree with that. To be honest, the first and last placement, I figured we'd probably agree. But yeah, for me, Argentina, I mean, it's not a slight, and it's not because I'm, half French that I put them there. It's more so that I genuinely think outside of some Messi magic and obviously a great tournament from McAllister, a great tournament from Enzo Fernandez, I just think out of these five teams, they were the least complete. And I think in a head-to-head, they'd lose against any of the other four. Going into
Yeah.
first place, I think it's 2010 Spain. That's like non-discussion. Um, For me, the
Yeah.
greatest international team I've ever seen. I don't know what the best variation of them was between 2008, 2010, and 2012. I think you can make an argument for any of those. But in any case, that 2010 World Cup team for me is maybe the best World Cup team I've ever seen, and definitely head and shoulders above all of these for first place.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the best I've seen in my lifetime. I mean, I would say in terms of the Spain teams, my preferred one is probably the 2012, just because that's when they
Yeah.
really brought it all together and they completely destroyed Italy in the final and kind of every team like along the way as well. And that was when they were kind of at their peak because in 2010 they had like a proper striker, so they played with like David Villa. He was out in 2012, so they had like the false nine. Like it was really kind of the epitome of the, Barcelona slash Spain style of play that was dominating in those years. I mean,
Yeah.
in my lifetime, I'd say for sure number one. I actually had I thought that it was of all time, so I'd written down as my number one, I would have written down Brazil 1970, but obviously I've never seen them play, so that's
Yeah,
just
I
from
think
like
that's
kind of
fair.
seeing them. But yeah, Spain, I mean, they were so good. Also, they lost their first game. Like a lot of people forget that. They lost their first game against Switzerland, and so people were kind of and Spain had a history of flopping at World Cups before then. So it was kind of the way that they broke their duck. So I think number one and number five, pretty uncontroversial.
Yeah.
I think the controversy is going to start at number two. So
Yeah.
I obviously both of us are going to be accused of having certain bias, right? Like me being
Mm,
half Italian, you being half French. I mean, the main reason why I put Italy at number two is just because their
mm,
defensive solidity in that World Cup was insane. Like in
yeah.
2006, Italy conceded two goals in the whole tournament. One of
Yeah.
them was that
Unreal.
iconic pen by Zidane in the final,
Mm,
and the other one was an own goal in the group stage. So that means that like for 7 games, they didn't concede a single goal in open play other than that own goal, right? So for me, that was really like a special tournament. I mean, when we talk about great teams in club football, for example, we bring up Chelsea's 2004, 2005 season where they
yeah.
conceded only 15 league goals. And
Mm,
obviously, this ranking is going to kind of depend on how you view football, right? Like if you're someone that really favors attacking football, you might think, yeah, like that's kind of not the best way to play. But if you're someone that kind of likes the defensive aspect, that was pretty insane. So that would be my first reason for picking Italy above the rest. And then the second reason is just the quality of the players themselves. Not saying that France or Germany didn't have good players. I think they did, but
no,
when you
definitely.
look at the starting 11s of both, even with the German team, Italy had it was full of like all-time players for us, right? Like we had people like Gattuso, Pirlo, like Del
Mm,
Piero started off the bench. He couldn't even get a starting spot. And for France, for example, you won that tournament. Also, players like Matuidi really stepped up. But like in my
yeah.
mind, Matuidi is not like an icon, right? Like he's a great player during those like 4 or 5 years, but I wouldn't say he's like an
Yeah.
all-timer for France. So that was kind of my rationale behind that.
I think that's fair. I knew we might have some disagreement on this. I agree on a lot of what you said about Italy. And the one thing to be clear, so that I show that it's not my bias, one thing I will say with Italy is I think Italy had arguably, like if we consider individual players in tournaments, I think they have one of the strongest resumes here. I mean, we're talking about Cannavaro, who played out of his skin. For me, maybe the best defensive performance by arguably like the best defensive performance by a player ever in a World Cup. Buffon was, yeah, a man possessed, incredible. And then the underrated one for me, I think I've told Paulo this before, but was Pirlo. I think Pirlo had an unreal tournament in 2006. Everyone talks about Zidane, which is normal. I mean, he's an icon. I love him, one of my favorite players ever. But Pirlo on the other side had an unbelievable tournament, was incredibly consistent. For me, where Italy lets itself down a bit is more of the offensive side of things. And that's also where I give France shine. I put France second, and there could be slight bias involved, but for me, it's because our team as a whole, or that 2018 team, I should say, was just incredibly balanced. You had, a young Mbappe who had just broken through at Monaco, who was ridiculously fast. You had Paul Pogba, who was in the form of his life, and we played a 4-2-3-1, but Matuidi coming in from the left when we were on defense. I think that like sort of holding three of Conte, Pogba, and Matuidi was just unbelievably good. And when you had Pogba doing over the top through balls to Mbappe was just a cheat code. Um, Let down a little bit by Giroud in terms of goal scoring, but I think he was a great player at holding up the ball and, distributing play. And Griezmann also had an incredible tournament. I think as a team, I'm speaking a lot about the offensive players, but our defense was extremely solid too. Rafael Varane had an incredible tournament. Umtiti was it was one of the peak performances I've seen for, for a French defender throughout our national team's history. So that's why I lean slightly towards there. But yeah, I think, with any of these are great teams. They're bound to be disagreements. I think it's funny we both have Germany third. I think we should talk a little bit about that. That's where I'm like, okay, we both recognize the other one, but my logic was Germany was like a well-oiled machine. Didn't have as necessarily, I don't know, incredible players, don't get me wrong, and crazy roster, but it was just like maximum, efficiency. I think that that final was somewhat weak, which might be an unpopular opinion. I think some of the teams they played in the build-up kind of let themselves down. I mean, there's the infamous 7-1 against Brazil, but apart from that, I mean, Algeria in the knockouts gave them one of the hardest runs, which I think is kind of crazy to think about. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think for Germany, I put it third. Like I was debating whether to put it second or third because it does have some pretty iconic players in their prime. Like Manuel Neuer, for example, was 28 during that World Cup. It was really when he was in his at his peak. And then
Yeah.
he had these iconic moments like Klose breaking the World Cup record, the 7-1. I mean, the 7-1 does carry its weight, right? Because they dismantled a team in its own
Yeah.
stadium. But the
Without
final,
Neymar,
yeah.
though, to be
Yeah,
fair,
exactly. Yeah. The final I think was very weak. Like in
the
my
final was
opinion,
weak.
also Argentina had several chances to score in the before the extra time period and they kind of messed up. Like that was when Higuain got a lot of grief for like missing a couple sitters.
Yeah.
So that could have easily gone a different way, right? Like they could have not even won that World Cup. But as you said, the main thing that brings it up is this real sense of cohesion. The fact that it is a well-oiled machine, that it was everyone kind of did their job really well. Maybe they didn't have world beaters in every position, but they had like three or four
No.
world-class players. Like they had Özil and Neuer. They had a really good
Schweinsteiger,
defense. Schweinsteiger, they had a good defense back then.
Klose, yeah.
Um, yeah, Klose. I mean, he wasn't world class then, in
Yeah,
my opinion, but he
yeah, I
he
would
was
agree.
still scoring goals. Like
Thomas
he was
Muller,
putting the
I
ball in the net.
think.
Yeah, Thomas Muller had a great tournament. So I think it was just a case of them doing their job well. I mean, being this classic Germany that we all
Mm,
remember, just like a really well-oiled machine. But I can't put it any higher
yeah.
than third because of they could have lost the final. Like, and I mean, I could say the same about Italy. They could have lost that 2006 final, right?
Th
But
this is
I
random. Sorry to cut you off, but what was the name
yeah.
of the left back for Germany? Do you remember? I remember
Oh,
was a very random guy. And I mean,
I
no
don't know.
disrespect. I
Was
mean,
it was
professional
it was it
footballer, but
like I think it was like Ginter or something? Could have been
yeah,
him. I don't know. Like
it
it
was
was
something
some
like I just
random
remember
guy.
their left back specifically was for me probably I mean I was younger at the time, but unknown going into the tournament.
Yeah, yeah, same. I mean, they had
Yeah.
Philip Lahm on the as a right back. I think he played as a
I-
right back then,
yeah.
right? Or was he in the mid? Yeah.
Yeah, he
So
was
that
playing
was
right
kind
back.
of yeah, that was an iconic team. I mean, obviously you have
Yeah,
players
because
like Tony
Khedira,
Cross as well.
Schweinsteiger, yeah, Cruz,
Yeah.
yeah,
Kroos, which is he's since then become one of the better midfielders in history, arguably. But I
definitely.
can't put them higher than third just because yeah, they could have lost that game. Like yeah,
Yeah.
I just their
Uh,
level of like iconic players isn't as high.
mm. I will say I think part of my ranking has to do with if I consider these teams head to head. Um I think Spain and Argentina have made clear cases, but that's part of the reason that I had France second is because I genuinely think, obviously this could never happen, but if you were to run a simulation, I think the France 2018 team would beat either the Germany or the Italy sides. But obviously we'll never know. But that is, part of the reason I ranked that team so high, but and that's part of the
I
reason
mean,
Germany ended up where
yeah.
it did for me, because I think Germany, we were talking about efficiency, might be able to outplay Italy. I don't know. It would be close. So
I mean, potentially, I see where you're coming from because a lot of the Italy tournament in 2006 was also like real defensive work, right? And so like if you simulate that 1,000 times, like maybe you don't get that same result 1,000
yeah,
times, right? That being said, we did manage to defend quite well against players like Thierry Henry, the top German players at the time. Players like
Zidane.
even like Shevchenko. We played Ukraine earlier on.
Yeah.
So obviously. it kind of, yeah, these counterfactuals we'll never really know what would have happened, but I think it would be, I think, so the way I view it is Spain is kind of clear ahead of the
Yeah,
rest. Then Germany, France, and Italy are kind of like very close.
I
And
would
then
agree.
Argentina, I'm sorry for whoever's listening from there, but I put them like very much below the
I
other
know.
four.
I am happy you say that because that makes me look less biased against them. I don't know. I will say, to be fair to Argentina, as much as it broke my heart and it was probably one of the lowest moments of my life, especially in a football sense, they were partook in what for me was the greatest football final I've ever seen.
Yeah, yeah,
And then
100%. I mean,
on an entertainment level, that World Cup will always rank extremely highly. But here we're ranking teams, so yeah, sorry,
but
I get
also
the
like that final, in my opinion, I mean, again, I might this might sound unpopular. If you play that final another 9 times, I think France wins like if you play it 10 times, France probably wins like 6 or 7 of them.
I would
Like I think
agree,
everything just went together in that game for Argentina to win. Like even
especially in the first
like
half.
yeah, the first half, but even like afterwards, like in extra time, the third Argentina goal was like super scrappy, like it was kind of in another world it wouldn't have gone in. I mean, obviously, there's that famous goal from Colomwani, or not goal rather, the shot,
The
but like that could have
save,
gone in
yeah,
quite easily. That save was really like a one in a
unbelievable.
million save. So
Yeah,
it's just I just think also the squad itself of Argentina wouldn't win. And that's maybe harsh from us to say even because Argentina, they've since then they've won the Copa America again. Like they've like
yeah.
been on a pretty good run. They've like kind of waltzed through the World Cup qualifications, even though I think South American qualifications are kind of a scam, but that's a different topic for a different
It's
debate.
also gotten the quality's also decreased compared to 10 years. I would say outside of
In
Argentina and
in
Brazil,
in yeah,
South
yeah, I
America.
would
But
say so.
anyways, that's neither here
So
nor
anyway,
there.
I think that's a good first
Yeah,
ranking list though. Like I think
definitely.
it's, solid. Do you want to move
Um,
on to the next one?
I'm sending a
Here we
request.
go.
Here we go.
Yeah,
All right. Sorry for that little pause, guys. We're back.
back
Um,
in business.
Back in business. All right, we're going to our next
Oh wow.
category, which I'm about to pull up. Rank these five never reach their potential players. So we're gonna set a time limit of 10 minutes for this one. Yeah, I'll start and you'll start, Pablo, and then we'll see how how much we align, how much we disagree. But yeah. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention. Sorry, there's two names on the last one. I wanted to ask for your opinion which one we should do, Robinho or Antonio Cassano. I thought they were both good options
I think
before we get into.
let's do Cassano.
Okay.
Sorry,
I
no, let's do
don't
Robinho. So
Let's
we
do
have
Robinho.
more. Yeah,
Okay. I was
it's
gonna
probably
say I don't know
easier.
Cassano as well, but I think Robinho. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah,
let's
yeah.
do
Let's
it.
do Robinho. Oh, this is a hard one actually.
It's really hard. I think this is one of the hardest sets of five. But I think some people are gonna be mad with my list, but oof.
I think so as well.
Oh, I hate to put this person ahead of this other person, but I have to. I have to, man. Ugh. Okay, okay, I'm good to
I
go.
made a last minute change that I think will be kind of controversial, but let's
I,
see.
I,
Okay, so
I'm really struggling for second and third, but all
my
right.
list is Balotelli, Pato, Ben Arfa, Robinho, and
I don't know if you can see
Wilshere.
my list. All right. So I've got Robinho, Balotelli, Pato, um, Wilshere, and
Well,
then Ben Arfa.
okay,
What's
okay.
your list? Sorry?
Balotelli,
Hmm.
Pato, Ben Arfa, Robinho, and Wilshere.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The thing
Oh,
is
interesting.
the way I saw it was like first, so out of these 5 players, which one had the highest ceiling, but then which one also was
Okay.
furthest away from their ceiling, right?
It's hard.
Because
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
reason I did that is because like for someone like Robinho, let's start there because you have him first, I think.
I had him first purely because Robinho was being talked about as like the next Pele, man. In terms of
That's true, yeah.
expectations, the expectation for him for Brazil was that he was going to be the guy. He was, he landed this superstar move to Real Madrid. Honestly, I don't know, kind of flopped. He wasn't a total flop per se, but it really let down compared to expectations. Um, that's why I put him first. honestly, the top three for me are somewhat interchangeable. I had Balotelli second. I know you had him first. You know how much I love Balotelli. He might be, as funny as it is, he might be, at least on like a meme level, but also as a player, he's maybe my favorite Italian player ever. I think he had potential to be like a top 10 striker all time, considering how good he was as like from 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Um, but yeah, it's hard because Pato, Pato for that AC Milan team as that young striker, I think he was 21 or 22. In that game where he rinsed, what was it, Barcelona, like cooked cooked their defenders, scored. It's hard, man. This I think is one of the hardest ones because those for me, those top three, which yeah, it's just very interchangeable.
I think this one's hard because remember, like the last list we were talking about the distance between the picks. Like I think all five picks are pretty close by in this case. So if you're
Yeah,
putting someone first or fifth, like there's not a huge difference, but it's just, I mean, so given the way I saw it was, yeah, potential and then their delta to the potential in a way, right? So, like I
right.
understand that Robinho probably had one of the higher potentials among these players, but he had a pretty good
Mhm.
career. I mean, obviously it wasn't an amazing career, but he still, he still played at Real Madrid. He played at City, even though he thought he was playing
City.
for Chelsea at the time. Uh, he he also
Yeah,
played for Milan. He won the league with Milan and scored like 15
yeah,
league
that's a
goals.
good
Like that's
point.
like quite a good resume. And obviously it kind of, didn't work out also like given the kind of horrendous charges he ended up facing later on, right? But
Yeah,
for him, I would say like that's why I don't have him that high. Balotelli, I have him number one because when he was like
yeah,
18, it seemed like he was destined to become the best striker in the world. Like he had a
I thought
physical
so.
strength that was insane. His technique was also amazing. And so from when he was 18 to when he was like, yeah, I would say 22, like when he won the league title with Man City, that was when he kind of was at his peak. And then after he had like some years where it was amazing, but then and he never lived up to it. And the
He,
thing with Balotelli is that
yeah,
he still showed like later on that when he was focused, he could do whatever he wanted. I don't know if this is a good
he
comparison
showed
because
glimpses. No, he
yeah,
showed glimpses in France. Yeah.
he's a bit like Nick Kyrgios in tennis, like he's like kind of like when he wants to, he's like really good, but he just never shows that consistently. So yeah, that
Yeah,
was
Balotelli, I almost put him first just because for me, he was gonna be the striker. He was gonna be the guy.
yeah.
I
And what
you
about
also had
yeah,
yeah.
what about Wilshere? Where did you put
So
Wilshere?
I put Wilshere fourth, which I
I
think
put
would
him
upset
last.
I think would upset some Arsenal fans. The thing is, everyone when they talk about Wilshere, they'll talk about like the breakout performance, and I think it was 2010 or 2011.
Against
2010,
Barcelona as
2011,
well.
yeah, against Barcelona, where he was honestly like the best midfielder on the pitch, arguably, yeah, best player on the pitch for that game.
Yeah.
He was unreal as, I think he was in his teenage years as well. He
I think it
was
was like
like,
18 or something, and he was better
yeah.
than Xavi and Iniesta, like everyone, right? So
But the thing with him is, yeah, he got, as we say, griefed by injuries,
yeah,
but I don't know. For me, when I compare him with the three that I have ahead of him, I just think those three were ones that were supposed to reach like the stratosphere, so to speak. Like
yeah,
when I look at this list, the names just on the weight they carry for Rubinho, Balotelli, and Pato is like those are big names. People talk about, oh, remember this player's peak. And yeah, Wilshere was good, but for me, he just was never in that same caliber. I always saw him as a
yeah,
good midfielder, a great future midfielder for England. He was going to be the one that received the torch from this generation of the Stevie G, Lampard, Scholes. But yeah. And then last I put Ben Arfa. You know how much I love Ben Arfa. Honestly, one of the most fun players to watch. On a technical level, unbelievable. Maybe the best dribbler we've ever had in France, like genuinely. Uh, but the thing with him was, as much as he had high potential, he just wasn't consistent enough like the other ones. The other guys at least had way more consistency over like a season to the point that I had to rank them
yeah.
higher, if that made sense.
No, I agree. I mean, Ben Arfa, the reason I put him so high, I put him third, is because he just plays football the way that everyone would like to play. Like everyone would love
Yeah.
even I would say that 99% of players today, professional footballers, would give anything to have his technical ability. Like he just has like an innate ability, which It could have, I mean, the thing is, yeah, again, you're right about the consistency. It wasn't the most consistent, but I think, I don't know, like I just wanted to put him a bit higher. And then, yeah, Robinho, as I said, put him lower because he still achieved a bit. Pato
No, you're
second
right. Yeah.
because he had that breakout play against Barcelona. And again, from like the age of like 19 to like 23, 24, he was amazing. He was also pretty, he had a lot of injuries, but he also was a key part in Milan winning the league. Like also Wilshere didn't really win anything in his peak years, you know? Like that's all I mean again, you could
That's
blame that on
fair.
Arsenal, but it's
Yeah.
not, I think that's something that I also hold a bit against him. How are we doing on time, by the way?
We're good. We are at about 8 minutes, but
Okay.
I'm happy to, yeah, we can put in some last comments. I would just say one of my last comments is even though I put them second and third, this is tough because dude, Balotelli and Pato are two of those players that I love. Like I've just, I find myself I watching videos. I just love the way they play. Balotelli, even though, he has the personality issues, maybe the ego problem, he's just such a, I don't know, such a fun player. He's one of those players you just wanted to root for. You wanted him to perform so badly. And then Pato, I don't know, maybe it's because he was silky and, a good-looking guy, this Brazilian like flashy, youngster. I don't know. That's all I want to
Yeah,
say. Yeah.
he
It's
also used to
it's
date
tough.
Berlusconi's daughter, Pato, when he was in Milan. So that was a fun fact.
I know you
And
told me
then
that. I had no idea. That's
And then
kind of a
Balotelli, I
crazy
mean,
time. Yeah.
yeah, out of the five, Balotelli definitely has the most iconic moment. I mean, two iconic
Yeah.
moments. The why always me, and then
Why always
the
me?
moment against Germany where he just like
I've
scored two goals
yeah.
in the first half an hour. I mean, that's just iconic.
Dude,
So I
not
gotta
just
put him
that,
first.
his only assist ever at Manchester City being the title-winning assist to the iconic Aguero moment
Yeah,
is
I
just
mean that's
unbelievable.
why like, out of the little that he did, he still like did like a lot of stuff. Like he has a good
And
repertoire. So I don't
he's
know,
he's actually, believe it or not, the only Italian that's ever won the Premier League.
which
People
is
might think that's a
crazy.
crazy
Yeah.
statistic and it sounds absurd, but he's the only Italian that's won the Premier League, at least since it became the Premier League.
Exactly. So
Um,
I'm pretty happy. I mean, I don't think we have like giant
no.
disagreements, but yeah. I mean, as I said, they're all five pretty close in my mind. So yeah. So let's
All right,
move on to the
move on to
next
the next
topic.
one. The next one I think is going to be really good. I don't think it's going to cause huge disagreements in terms of like we'll both understand, but this is what was one of my favorite ones to create. It's rank these five defenders peak form. So we're not factoring in their whole career. We're not factoring in what maybe they were part of a dynasty or a dynasty team, or yeah, we're talking about this player at their peak. Let's say at their peak season, maybe a one-off game or maybe not a one-off game, but their peak season, peak 12 months, 18 months, Yeah. Um, I'm gonna go ahead. This one's also tough because no matter what you do, you're gonna upset people.
Yeah, I think
Oof,
actually
this
this
is
was
actually
relatively there were the top three is kind of hard, but the last two I thought were quite easy.
I think our last two might be the same.
And the thing is, I think people need to focus on the definition of this ranking because it's peak form. So I think that changes a lot. Like if it wasn't
It
peak
does.
form, I'd have a way different ranking.
My fifth would be a lot higher if this was career.
Yeah,
Um,
same for me. So
okay.
I'm ready when you are.
Three,
Okay, so
two,
do
one. I've
so I put
gone. Oh, interesting. Oh, we have polar opposites for the peak. Okay, I've got
really
Virgil van Dijk. Pablo's got Sergio Ramos. I've got
second. I've got
Nesta second.
Cannavaro. We got
You've got
Nesta.
Cannavaro. I've got Cannavaro third. Got Van Dijk. Ferdinand fourth, which we agree on, and then I've got Ramos last, and Pablo's
Wow.
got Nesta last.
Okay,
Wow,
so
I'm
so
shocked about that.
well, first of all, let me preface this by saying I absolutely despise Sergio Ramos. So
That's
like it's
why I'm.
not out
That's
of
why
any
I'm
bias.
shocked.
But the thing is, I have to put him first because if we're talking about peak form, and I took peak form on like the shorter term, right? Like maybe you said like over 12 months,
Yeah,
18 months, but for me it's like if I want a defender for one game, I'm probably picking Ramos just because I mean, first of all, his defending is amazing. I mean, he's not the best technical defender out of all of these, but Second, his goal scoring, you
No,
can't ignore that. I mean, his goal in the 2014
and his
Champions League
leadership,
final, his
yeah,
leadership, his
and
goal in the
Decima.
2016 Champions League final, the fact that he's just like a leader and he really like leads by example. He doesn't mind like putting in like a crunching tackle to save the day. So I put him
Yeah.
first. Like that's I'm curious to hear
So
why you put him last in that
yeah,
sense.
I think this one will have a lot of back and forth on. For the record, so everyone listening, this is very funny because Pablo is not a fan of Sergio Ramos. He's not at
Not at
all a fan
all.
of him. Whereas I like him. I'm more indifferent, but I hope people, yeah, it sounds bad putting Sergio Ramos fifth because you hear about Sergio Ramos, you think about the Real Madrid captain, you think about La Decima, you think about Mr. Clutch, and I completely agree with that. But for me, if we're talking career, I might have him number one, like of this list. I mean, uh, um, he's that guy. But if we're talking about a peak, man, I've said this to Pablo. I'm not even the biggest fan of this guy, but I have to put Virgil van Dijk first. That Virgil van Dijk peak, like 17, 18, 18, 19, that Liverpool peak when he had that crazy statistic about like not being dribbled past and things like that. That for me in my lifetime is the single best like peak for a defender I've seen. You have this 6'4", strong as an ox, fast as hell, good at playing the ball. Like it was just a freak of nature. I wouldn't put him as like in my if I made a duo, I wouldn't put him in my top ever based off career. But if we're talking about a peak, I have to put him number one. Um,
No, I get that. I mean, the thing is, my again, I think we maybe had slightly different definitions. So my definition was just if, aliens come down to Earth and we need to assemble an 11 aside
Martians have got
team.
the space beam
Exactly. They've got
pointed
this,
at
yeah,
Earth. You
I'm
said,
not putting
I want Sergio
Iguodala.
Ramos.
I'm putting Ramos and then Cannavaro. And the reason I put Cannavaro second on over Van
Cannavaro, I
Dijk,
get.
I mean, you
Mhm.
very eloquently explained why Van Dijk, that statistic where he didn't get dribbled past for like a whole year is absolutely crazy and might never happen again. But the
Mhm.
thing is, Cannavaro was the marshal behind that Italy defense that we discussed
Yeah.
earlier, right? Like the defense that barely conceded any goals. And so I just had to put him second because maybe, yeah, he doesn't come up with the goals as much as Ramos does, but he was a leader. I mean, he won the Ballon d'Or, which some people would claim that he probably didn't deserve it that year.
Contentious. Yeah.
But he was the leader of that team, and that's why if this was just career, Cannavaro might even be last out of these five, you know.
I
But
think he
but
would.
when it comes to peak, I think you need to put him high just because he was able to like bring together a team. And we forget that Italy team was kind of in shambles before the World Cup because we just had this
Mm,
huge corruption scandal. Juventus got sent to the second tier because of it. A
that's
lot of
right.
players were even there were talks that some of the players should be banned even from the squad, and he kind of managed to bring together all these players, like kind of amalgamate the team and lead us
Mm,
to victory. So for that, I put him second. Van Dijk third. I mean, no introduction, right?
yeah.
Like he was insane those 3 years. Ferdinand and Nesta, I honestly, for me, it was like splitting hairs. Like for me, they were the last two, just because Nesta, as I would say, he had like a solid career in my opinion. Like his career, he was like
Yeah.
they call a Rolls Royce of a center back. Like he was like that, but 20 years ago, you know?
Yeah.
But he was just solid. And in some ways, I think he was probably better than Cannavaro. Like he was a better player. He was just stronger. He was taller. He was more like uh tactically aware in some ways. So
Yeah.
I would put him, but I would put let him last here just because in the big moments he wasn't there, and that was very unfortunate.
That's
Like in
fair.
2002 he got injured,
He
2006 he
missed
got injured.
injury. Yeah.
Yeah, so he
Yeah.
missed like Italy's big tournaments through injury, so that kind of weighs him down a little bit. And also he was
Yeah.
next to maybe the best center back of all time when he was playing at AC
So
Milan, which yeah.
I do think it's interesting with Nesta, and I think this is one that of all of these, I think for me is one of the most interesting ones to talk about because with Nesta, I've always heard from AC Milan fans, and this partially might have influenced my ranking, and I've gone and watched videos of him. I was too young at the time to really appreciate his game, but I've watched videos, to learn a bit more. But older AC Milan fans always tell me that at his peak, he was unplayable and that he was, everyone talks about Maldini, if we had Maldini in this list, I think we'd agree that he's just, for me, he's maybe the GOAT of defenders, probably is. I love him. He's the best. But they talked to me about how I don't know. I've been spoken to by AC Milan fans who say that Nesta was just built different. He was that guy, and not just AC Milan. When he was at Lazio as well, he was, essential in that squad. I think it was even when he was younger, it was in the 90s. He was like early 20s, I believe. I could be wrong about his age, but he always hear about how good he was. And I guess this is more towards the career aspect, but yeah, that did influence me. I also think, you know on a physical level, he was, a bit more skinny, not like the tallest guy on this list, but just tactically so good. A great tackler, like you
Yeah.
said, a Rolls Royce of a defender, comfortable with the ball. And I also give him aura points, as cringe as that sounds. He just had that, he had that presence
No, that's
that
true. He
some of
had
these guys
the
on these guys all have. But yeah,
Yeah, he had the long hair, like like it was good. And then Ferdinand, I mean, I don't know, like I would say again, I didn't really watch the Premier League a whole lot when he was playing at his peak, but
he was
I think from the
incredible.
stories he was incredible. I mean, he was,
Yeah,
he really led United throughout that period where they were winning like leagues every year and they won the Champions League, and he did a lot for
yeah.
England as well, even though England didn't end up winning anything. Like he was like one of their better performers in these tournaments. So I don't know. I just think it kind of yeah, it's
He had
kind of
a
harsh to put them
yeah.
last, but yeah, I don't know.
I had him fourth, but he had a great I mean he had a great career. Rio Ferdinand is, him and John Terry are the two best English center backs, in my
Yeah,
opinion, ever. And but if we're talking about a peak, I don't know. I just look at the other guys, and if I'm talking about a one-off game, or one season. I just he ends up fourth just because Nesta, Virgil van Dijk, Cannavaro, sorry, VVD, Nesta, Cannavaro, I rank higher. I do also,
yeah,
I know you spoke really nicely about Cannavaro, and you know much more about him than I do, being Italian and being a Serie A fan. But I do want to give him props for one thing, for being a 5'9" or a meter 75 slash a meter 76 center back, and being as good as he was is an anomaly, man. He
yeah.
fit
He
the
was a
mold
short
of
guy.
Italy's done that before. Baresi was also, I think, even shorter than him, maybe a couple centimeters shorter. But being that good at that height, like we've seen with him, with Mascherano, I think you got to give credit for that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, and I had actually forgotten about that point. So it's good that you brought it up because I mean, some Man United fans aren't going to be happy seeing Ferdinand at four. They're going to be like, oh, like Ferdinand is the best center back. But
Yeah,
I
I
just
know
think
it's tough.
if you're looking at peak form, whether it's over the real short term, over like a season, I think you can't put him higher than fourth. So I think it's an interesting to see how we differed in our analysis of what peak form meant. But I think
Yeah,
the list is they're pretty solid lists.
I would agree. All right, let's move on to the next one. Rank these five managers, and we're going all time. It's a heavy hitter list. Pablo and I have discussed this off the podcast a number of times, so there will be slight disagreements. Nothing violent though, but yeah. All right, let's get into it. Oh gosh, this is hard even now. I'm having a hard time choosing. I think we're definitely gonna disagree on the ranking of the top four, but
I think the fifth one might be a bit easier
I
to
think
agree
we'll
with,
the
but
fifth will agree, which he's
I'm
just
done.
unlucky.
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
So mine
Starting the
is
timer.
first Sir Alex,
Yeah.
Ancelotti, Guardiola, Mourinho, and Zidane.
Okay. That's not too different. I've got Saf, um, Pep, Mourinho, Ancelotti, and then Zidane.
So I
So
think
I
yeah, do
just
you want
want
to
to take
start one
I
and
want to
five? I
start.
mean,
Just I want to start quickly by prefacing that I love Zinedine Zidane. He's one of my all-time favorite players. In terms of what he achieved as a manager, if we actually like look at accolades relative to the amount of time he spent managing, the three-peat, he's incredible. And I think for me, he's fifth on an all-time list, despite having managed way less games than any of these guys. And that alone is such a huge compliment. The problem is those four are like the Mount Rushmore of managers. So he's unfortunately going up against them. I think hopefully when he takes over after Deschamps, which I'm manifesting, maybe that'll add to his resume. But yeah, the other four men, it's the Mount Rushmore, like we said. We both had Sir Alex Ferguson. I think that's fun. I'm a Chelsea fan, a big Premier League guy. Pablo also follows Premier League a lot, but he's more Serie A orientated. So I'm surprised you put Sir Alex first. But do you want to speak to it a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I put him first. I think you kind of have to. Like, obviously, people will say like different eras, whatever. But the fact of the matter is that Ferguson managed United during 26 years and won
Yeah,
13 league titles. I mean, that's an
yeah,
insane number of league titles to win during during that time. If you also take into account that
yeah.
the
It's
first five
strong.
years he didn't win anything, that's 21 years and 13 league titles in the Premier League era. I mean, we've seen how hard it is to keep winning the Premier League. United haven't won it since he left. And I just think he kind of epitomized what it was to be Man United at that time, right? Like it was just like the
Yeah.
best team, uncompromising. Like he was very difficult from a character point of view. Like if there was a player that felt like they were too big for their station, he would kind of
Mm,
move them on, right? So he had this manager aspect more than just the coach, right? Like he kind of
mm,
was the sporting director. He filled like multiple different roles, and yeah, so that's why I'd put him first. The one thing you can hold against him, which I think most people would say, even maybe the people watching this, is the lack of European silverware. He did only win the
yeah.
Champions League twice over that time. And that's why I think going back to your point about Zidane, that makes it even more impressive what he did, right? Because he won three Champions Leagues in three
Yeah.
years. Even more if you consider what he did as an assistant to another manager that's on this list. But that just shows kind of how difficult it is to win, even a manager that was so consistent. Maybe you could argue that most of Ferguson's time at United was when Premier League was not at its peak as it is now, in a way,
Yeah.
right? Like maybe Serie A and La Liga were
Well,
kind of having domination eras.
yeah.
Like in the late
Yeah.
90s, Serie A was kind of there. In the
No,
2000s,
that's
La Liga
fair.
took over.
2000s as well.
But
Yeah.
I would say that he needs to be first just because of the number of accolades, the amount of time he managed to
The
stay in the
duration of
team.
time.
Yeah, the
Mm.
26 years, I mean, that's amazing. Like both of us don't think our careers will last 26 years at the same place, you know?
No.
So I would put him
So,
first. So I think
and
he's first. Maybe he'll
yeah.
be overtaken at the end of the career
There's a
of some
good
of these,
there's a good
but yeah.
chance. Yeah. I will say this. I do want to say one thing about Saf, just to or Saf, I should call him Sir Alex, just to interject a bit, is as a man manager, I think he's the best on this list. You spoke to that a bit earlier, but just you hear the way the players talked about him and presence he had, the sort of, he was in their lives. Really, this was football was different back then. It wasn't as how do I say? It was more, mixed. I'd say, like you said, you took over multiple roles. There wasn't as much division amongst the tasks that are go into, a managerial team or the coaching staff. Um, and he reinvented the team multiple times. I mean, we're talking about losing players, changing things up. He did that over the course of 26 years and just remained consistent. I think for me, that's why he's first. All right, I think we'll tackle the middle three altogether. I had Pep, then Mourinho, then Ancelotti. You had Ancelotti, then Pep, then Mourinho.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So Pep, it's funny because of the three that I've mentioned, Mourinho is my favorite. As you know, as a Chelsea fan, I adore Mourinho despite the messy relationship twice over. But Pep for me just tactically has just changed football. I have to give him his plaudits, give him second place, just for the pure impact that he's had in terms of taking that Barcelona identity and applying it to multiple different teams, learning from Johan Cruyff, the total football. I think that impact alone, I had to put him second. You could criticize him and say, he's only ever managed super teams with a ton of money. I think that's a very valid criticism, but that's why I had him second. Do you want to speak a bit to Carlo Ancelotti? I had him fourth, but I think he could be
So
these
yeah, so
three.
with
Yeah.
Ancelotti, if you had asked me this question 5 years ago, I would have probably put him fourth in this list just because he had a great career, but I think his career has been enhanced by the last 5 years as well because he's kind of had a second youth in a way at Real Madrid, like going back and winning the Champions League twice, winning a couple La Ligas as well. Like again,
Yeah.
he the thing is, the Guardiola, like what most people hold against him is the fact that he's only managed super teams. And I think that's a pretty valid criticism because most of the coaches, except for Zidane, most of the coaches on this list have managed a team that wasn't the best at a certain point and kind of built it up. Like Ancelotti famously
Mm,
managed Parma in the 90s. He managed Milan and kind of built them up from when, they were struggling a bit when he went there, and then he built them up to a team that won the Champions League twice and made a final, the
yeah,
famous Istanbul final. I mean, Mourinho, we don't need to even talk about it, winning the Champions League with Porto. Even though these days
yeah.
some people online are trying to take that diminish, are trying to like diminish that achievement. I think that's a
No.
crazy achievement. I
Yeah,
mean, we haven't really seen
I'm
it
happy to hear you
since.
raving about that because I always rave about it.
I
But
mean,
yeah,
Mourinho also coached my favorite club, Roma, and when he
yeah.
was coaching us, he's a
But
coach that you love him when he's on your side, but
exactly.
then,
You know what you're gonna
oh,
get. You're gonna get 2 seasons of maybe the most entertaining, not necessarily on the football pitch, but the most entertaining, like
yeah,
the overall
exactly.
situations you can have with your club for 2 seasons, and then it caps out, and you know it ends in flames with
Yeah, and
Mourinho. But
I also always have a special spot for Mourinho just because I'm actually met him when I was 11 years old at an
yeah,
event,
that's right.
and he signed an autograph for me. He didn't want to take a picture though, so that was a bit sad. But yeah, I have his autograph, and so I've always had a soft spot for him. I think honestly, this is maybe a bit controversial. His time at Real Madrid was slightly disappointing. I mean, it was great to see him and Pep go at it from like a mediatic standpoint. Just every press conference
Mm,
they were kind of insulting each other. It was great television in Spain. But from an achievement standpoint, I was slightly disappointed just because he came from Inter, a team that had just won the Champions League. He wasn't able to replicate that at
yeah.
Real Madrid. And you could say the same with Pep at Bayern as well, right? So I just think I put Pep third because he's only coached super teams. I do think by the end of his career, he could easily be second or first. I think Mourinho, if you had asked this question like 10 years ago, he would have been second in my mind, no questions. He's gone a bit
Mm,
down now just because in the last decade or so, he's
as stock is.
his stock has dropped, like some of his interviews have been kind like his interview at Manchester United, while hilarious about the football heritage, hasn't,
And
it
also,
didn't,
three
yeah.
for me.
Yeah,
I
three
won
for
the
me and two
premierships
for the rest.
alone.
Yeah, that's not the case anymore. I mean, Pep has
But
like six now,
yeah,
so it's
but
not, yeah.
but with Mourinho, you're totally right. And football has gone past him. He's maybe the one on this list that I can say definitively football's grown past his style. Um, I always give him credits, especially as a Chelsea fan, that, insane 15 goals conceded,
Yeah.
1 game away from being invincible, fucking Nicolas Anelka. I always give him credit for this, but it's not just Chelsea or Porto. It's also, dude, it's the treble at Inter that was also unbelievable. I mean, Diego Milito turned into one of the best strikers in the world for a season. Eto'o, who had been sort of banished from Barcelona. Wesley Schneider, he had some, I forget who exactly, the full back line, but it was also crazy. Yeah, anyways, all of these
Yeah.
guys are all timers. You know, they've all changed football. I think you could honestly rank well, I think first you kind of have to go Sir Alex Ferguson as we agreed, but then when you go second, third, or fourth, I think it's pretty interchangeable. I
I,
put
I would say
Ancelotti
so.
fourth, but there's definitely a case to be made
Yeah, I
for,
mean
yeah, second or
Mourinho,
third.
that treble winning season broke my heart as a Roma fan. We lost to Inter in
Of
both the
course.
league and the Italian Cup, but it was really fantastic. I mean, he beat Pep on route to winning that Champions League, a Pep team
Yeah.
that everyone thought would destroy Inter. And then I think I don't know,
And
I
they were
just think
obsessed
with
with playing the final in the Bernabeu. Yeah, it
yeah,
crushed
yeah,
the
exactly.
dreams.
Yeah. I think the issue though was the issue that I have with Zidane, and I think he can go up the list, especially if he takes over the France job and wins a few trophies there. I just think that
Knock on
he
wood.
over the last few years, he's had like several offers to coach from what I've seen online, and he's always kind of refused.
Yeah.
And so I'm
But
not, you might want to
I
say he
kind of
takes
get
a
it though.
yeah, I get it,
The
but
the
you want
biggest name
to
was Man United, and Man United at the moment is like a disaster. I don't think he'd be able to. you
No,
know.
that's true, but I think like from his career, from a point of view of his career, like it would be so nice if he would coach like
That's
Juventus and try and bring them back to like their
no,
dominant ways, you know?
that's true. And maybe I'm biased because I'm French and I see the French media and I've watched his sort of interviews, and he's made it very abundantly clear that outside of the managerial job he's done now, he's said, and he's always very respectful of Deschamps. He's made it clear that he will only consider France as his next thing, and maybe that's why I love that because I want him for our national team eventually. But yeah, all right,
Right,
like
yeah. And I mean as a managerial career, I mean his career is amazing, right? It's like
yeah,
he's gonna be coaching Real Madrid and then France national team. Like it doesn't get better than
the
that,
the
right?
fact that we've already put him fifth on this list is insane, considering
Yeah.
the
I
managers
mean,
that are
I'm not
available.
sure.
But
So I think you could argue that some people that weren't on the list, like maybe like Arsene
oh
Wenger could still compete with Zidane. I think
yeah,
it kind of depends, right?
yeah.
But
Arsene
or
Wenger didn't win enough titles though.
yeah, he didn't win that. Like the thing
I
is
like Arsene
Zidane
Wenger,
won a
but
lot.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know. You're right. But I thought this would be a good set of
Yeah, yeah, for
five,
sure.
a good starting five, so to speak. But all right, let's move on to the next one. All right, we're back, and the next topic is ranking these five biggest transfer flops, um, being Felipe Coutinho from Liverpool to Barca, Eden Hazard from Chelsea to Real Madrid, Ousmane Dembele from Dortmund to Barca, Romelu Lukaku from Inter to Chelsea, and Paul Pogba transfer back to United. I'm going from the bottom up, to be honest.
Hmm.
Oof, this is hard. You know what? I got to do it. I'm not putting bias aside for my number one ranking.
I think we have a similar, we're gonna have a similar list.
Um, oof. Two and three are interchangeable.
Yeah,
All
I'm
right.
done.
Okay, so I'm gonna show my five. You can show your five as well. I've got Lukaku one, um, Coutinho second, Hazard third, Pogba fourth, and then Dembele fifth. Pablo's got,
Okay.
yeah,
Lukaku, Azar, Coutinho, Dembele, and Pogba.
I
Okay,
love
well,
the
let's
little
start with where we
French
agree, number
pronunciation of it
one.
as
I
a.
mean,
Yeah,
as a
so
Chelsea fan, I'll let you take that one.
yeah, I'll make this quick. Lukaku was it's just the ultimate flop. I mean, I can't lie. I have very strong disdain for this player. He's the most disliked player to say the least for me. Um, Coming in for the amount we paid over 100 million, I think, or what, 100 million euros, maybe something around that range. It was something crazy.
Yeah.
We had just won the Champions League. We were with Thomas Tuchel. It was like Champions of Europe. This was this big striker that was coming in for us to be that guy. The previous season, yes, we had won the Champions League, but it had been chaotic. We had been missing the big man up top. Timo Werner did not have the output we wanted on goals. We had solid wingers, but we really needed that pivotal striker. Our defense was good, midfield was good, and Lukaku came in and just disappointed. Within 3 months, he was doing interviews with Italian media talking about how I can't wait to go back to Inter. Inter's still in my heart. I'll play with Lautaro one day. At the time when he did that interview, we were top of the table. This can then it like I'm not saying that single-handedly caused the crash. Obviously, there was the you know, invasion of Ukraine that was the number one contributing factor. But that on like the club side totally upset the dressing room. He called out Tuchel. It was just a disaster. I'm not going to rant about it too much, but for me, it's just relative to the price, the expectations, what the story could have been. It was the biggest letdown for me on this list.
Yeah, I think it has to be first. I mean, for the clear reason that what do you want to do in a transfer? You want the player to be there for the long term, right? These players are
Yeah,
always signing 4 or 5 years contract. And I mean, Lukaku was flirting with another team 3 months after signing. I mean, it's like if you
yeah,
get married and then you're like flirting with like one of the
yeah.
bridesmaids or something,
After
right? Like it
kissing the
doesn't
badge as well.
exactly. It doesn't quite work, right? And so for that reason, it needs to be number one. I mean, I
Yeah.
think also he did have a pretty big role in kind of destabilizing Chelsea as a club, right? Because you just have your marquee signing going out and saying something like that. It's just not very professional, you know? So I think nothing to Chelsea the second time he went back. He was probably even a net negative in some ways. So it has to be number one for me. I mean, what should we
Oops.
go down the list?
Yeah.
I put
Yeah.
two as a two. I put Azar just because he
And then
was he transferred for so much money. It was like 150 million euros,
yeah.
something around that. And he was so good for Chelsea. Like the season he went to Real
Yeah.
Madrid, it's when he was with Sarri. He had Europa League, so that's why I put him there. The thing is, he never played for Real Madrid really. Over 4 seasons, he played like 40 matches. He scored like 3 or 4 goals. He was never fit. He was out of
It was
shape. I
bad.
mean, it's a shame. It's a shame because I think it was he wanted to play there, but didn't work out.
It's hard. Maybe I didn't put him second because of slight bias, but I put Coutinho second, and the reason is because Coutinho came in during this period of time in Barcelona where they just sold Neymar and they went on a bit of a spending spree, which resulted in a large number of flops, namely Coutinho and Griezmann. But
Another
the
one that's
expect
on this list too.
yeah, and another and Dembele as well, yeah. But with Hazard, with Eden, I completely get what you're saying, and you're honestly probably right. I should probably put him second, but it's more so the expectation that Coutinho was coming in, and yes, Messi was still at the club, and they still had a lot of other stars, but Coutinho was coming in as this huge money transfer signing off of a good 6 to 9 months with Liverpool, and the expectations were for him to be that guy, you know. They played him left wing, which honestly he was Coutinho was one of those weird ones where he didn't really have a very specific position. Like he played left wing, he played attacking mid, but he did not work at left wing for Barca. He did not fill the gap that Neymar left, and that's why I had him so low. He just kind of fell off immediately after. Hazard, I give him slight, you know, I give him some leeway because most fouled player in Premier League history. I don't know. I don't want to be his attorney. I love him a lot, but most fouled player in Premier League history. It was a miracle that he didn't get injured earlier than he did. Just his playing style and, the way he was at Chelsea. So I give him a little bit of leeway for that reason because the injuries really screwed him over. But I will say, he came into Madrid out of shape. He was never going to be that guy training the way that they would have expected him to, when you're used to these guys like Benzema, Cristiano, Luka Modric. He was never that same ilk in terms of training. And yeah, I don't know. So I agree, but I think those two are interchangeable. Let's move on to the last two, Pogba and Usman. So you had Pogba last, I believe,
Yeah.
and Usman fourth, whereas I had Dembele fifth and Pogba fourth. I will just say this with Dembele, the reason I put him fifth is because he was young and he's kind of gone on this vindication run since then. And even despite the fact that, yes, they paid a ridiculous sum of money for him, and in the end, he let them down. A lot of people blame him for Barcelona's downfall from that one game. Um, he still had very good output. If you look at like some of his numbers, I mean, I don't want to be a GA merchant, but he still, contributed a lot of assists. He wasn't a total failure, and just based off how young he was, I kind of give him leeway for that reason.
No, I agree with that. I mean, these two were pretty close. Like I just put Pogba bottom rather because he kind of went for a bit of a lower fee. I mean, obviously there are different positions as well. And the thing is, he also did play okay at United at times. Like he wasn't the transformational player that they needed, for sure, but he wasn't terrible the whole time. I mean, there were seasons where he had like 10 plus Premier League goals, which for a
Yeah,
central mid slash
it's
attacking mid is
crazy.
quite good. I mean. I put Dembele slightly ahead of him just because the expectation was quite big, even though he was young. And he also kind of screwed Barcelona over at the end, like when he left. Like he inserted this clause where he could leave for like 50 million, but like half of that went to him. So
Yeah.
he didn't like give them a return in their investment. And you could say the same about Pogba. I mean, Pogba went back to Juve on a free. But I would say, yeah, those two are pretty close. Dembele's go ever since then, he's gone like a redemption run for sure. He's still pretty young. He's like 28. He might even
Mm.
win the Ballon d'Or this year if PSG goes on to win the Club World Cup, right? So we kind of need to just see how that goes. But as far as for the transfers, I think
Yeah.
he's slightly ahead of Pogba.
I do want to say one thing about Pogba. Pogba is one of my all-time favorite players. He was one of those players for me that I fell in love with, was one of those players that made me fall in love with the game of football. Um, when he was at Juventus in the period, 2013, 2014, 2015-ish time period before going to United, he was my favorite player in the world, and I still adore him. But the problem with him is even though he did have some great heights with United, we're talking about a player that averaged less than what? Yeah, averaged I think less than 30 games a season. He just availability, it sounds cliche, but availability is one of the best attributes, and he just wasn't available the way United needed him to be. And that's why I kind of, I take that a bit away from him. I know you can say the same thing about Ousmane Dembele, but Pogba came in as that high profile signing, that center mid. He was it was the biggest signing of the year. It was one of the biggest signings for years to come. And
Yeah.
as much as I adore him, I think that tarnishes him a little bit. That's why I edged him at fourth, but yeah.
No, that's fair. That's fair. That's fair, I think.
All right. Well, we've given these guys enough time. We're gonna move on to the next the next round of five, which is a double one. So we'll decide how we want to do this time-wise, but it's ranking these five wingers, career first, and then peak form second. Uh, I think we do career first. This is gonna be tough. This might be the toughest one, but we can try career first and then
Yeah,
talk
I
about
agree. Let's
peak
do
at the
the
same
career.
time.
Yeah, let's do the career first. Or let's do both, but we'll talk first about the career and then, yeah.
Um, oh gosh, just looking at this is hard. Oh, I've written mine and I already am thinking about changing.
Oh
Oof.
God, mine's tough.
Third and fourth could be swap. Third, fourth, and fifth could be swappable. This is
All
this is
five could be
tough.
swappable. Mine's gonna be, I think we're gonna
All
disagree
right.
on this one quite a bit.
We'll preface. All right. I'm starting it. I've done mine. This is for career. I've put Salah, followed by Bale, followed by Hazard, followed by Arjen Robben, followed by Ribery.
So that's in the career one.
Yes, in the career.
So my career one is Bale number one,
Yeah.
Robin number two,
Yeah.
Salah number three, Eden Hazard number four, and Ribery unfortunately number five.
Mm. Yeah, so okay, we have some agreement already. We both put Ribery in fifth, which I
Yeah, so
I
that's
yeah,
unfortunate for him. I mean,
it's just an
an
all-timer
amazing
list.
player, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Now we're
But
talking
I
about
put
a
him
guy who was
last. Yeah.
yeah, shortlist
He
for the
was so
Ballon d'Or,
good.
He was so good. It's just you're coming up against these guys. I don't know. For the career, for me, Salah and Bale had to be first and second. I know you put Salah third, but I put him first just because he's a he's a numbers beast. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen a winger have output the way he has in the Premier League at least. And outside of Messi and Ronaldo, in terms of just pure, goals and what he does for his team, he's got to be up there. He's that guy. He's been doing it for I don't even know how long. I mean, he's been doing it. He arrived at Liverpool in what was it, 2017 summer, and he's been
Yeah.
doing it since then. We're coming up on 10 years soon enough of this ridiculous output, and he's just not slowing down. Now has two Premier League titles, a Champions League title, multiple scoring records. Um, that's why I put him first. But Bale, I think you could make an argument for being first. It's a toss up. Gareth Bale, if we're talking about a peak, I mean we'll talk about peak after, but Gareth Bale's career, he's the greatest player to ever come from, the United Kingdom for me. So Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Bale, I put him first just because first of all, he had a very varied career. So at the beginning, he played as a left back and he was like cursed and his team didn't win for like 40 games or something. But then after he transitioned into this kind of explosive winger, he even played
Yeah.
sometimes at striker, but obviously he was mostly a winger and he was just unreal. I mean, and then we'll talk about this when we get to peak, but some of Bale's moments are so iconic. Like just but I would say I would put him first just because, he played for Real Madrid in a time where Real Madrid was the best team.
Yeah.
He wasn't obviously the best player at Real Madrid, but he did have these good moments. And I also put him first because of what he did with Wales. I know that that's maybe something that people don't think about as much, but he brought Wales to the Euros in 2016 after I don't know how much time that they had not been in an international tournament.
Semifinals.
They
Yeah.
made the semifinals. They
Yeah.
beat Belgium, that super team in Belgium with like De Bruyne, Courtois, Lukaku,
Mm.
like the who's who of Belgium football. They beat them in
Mm.
the quarters, right? And then not only that, but he also took Wales to a World Cup in 2022. Like he took them to the World Cup in Qatar. Granted, they were very poor in that World Cup and they went out right away, but just the fact that he brought Wales to three tournaments in a row, or three tournaments when they had only made one tournament in their history prior to that, which was the 1958 World Cup, is insane, right? And he was obviously
Mm.
it was a team effort, but he was kind of spearheading that movement. I mean, we all see that famous or infamous poster of Wales golf, Real Madrid, right? So that just
Yeah.
showed kind of what he chose to prioritize. I guess you could say he kind of retired quite young in a way. Amazing. I mean, he didn't have the longevity of Salah, but that's why I have him first.
I think that's very, yeah. If we're talking about international records, I think it's him and Robin are the top two on this list for
Then
sure.
I have Robin second. What about
Yeah.
you? Where do you have Robin third, right?
No, I have him fourth. I put him after Hazard,
Fourth.
but that's what I was
Okay.
saying. I was saying third and fourth are kind of interchangeable. It might be my Chelsea bias. I have Hazard third because just what he achieved and being as important as he was. Yes, he never won. Belgium failed to win anything on an international scale. And yeah, he won Europa League and the league title at Chelsea, never won Champions League. He was kind of he was literally between the two eras. Um, I just it's Hazard, I don't know how to explain. I had to put him, I had to give him his props, put him third. But that might also be my Premier League bias. I weigh his achievements more compared to that Bayern team destroying the Bundesliga the way it did. But, Arjen Robben, to give him his dues, the guy is the epitome of, you've got one thing and you're so good at that one thing that everyone knows what you're going to do, but they still can't stop it. And
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I have Robin just slightly ahead just because of these achievements at international level. Like obviously the Netherlands is overall a stronger team than Belgium historically. They have like a bigger
yeah,
tradition, but the fact that he was able to like really drag them to that World Cup final in 2010 when their team was not that good. Like that Dutch 2010 team it was
no,
good, but it wasn't amazing. And then he did have that chance in the final where Casillas kind of saved it. I think if he scores that he might even be higher on this list because that would have been probably the winning goal for the Netherlands. And he probably would have won the Ballon d'Or that year and he would have been viewed at an even higher level. But even so, I mean, also the thing with Robin is that he's played for some of the most iconic clubs in the world, right? He's played for Bayern for a lot of years. He played for Real Madrid for a few years. He even played for Chelsea like at the start
yeah,
of his
it's
career, right? So
unbelievable as well.
whereas whereas most of these other players have kind of had one team where they were insane at. I mean, you have Azar at Chelsea. Obviously, he was good at Lille before then, but it wasn't like at Chelsea's when he really exploded. Or
Mm.
Ribéry, right? Like I think before he went to Bayern, he played in like some kind of mid-tier French team. I'm not sure exactly which one. It might have been like Boulogne or something, but I can't
I
recall
honestly
to be
don't
fair.
remember. I
And
should, but
Bale, like he was at Spurs before Real Madrid, but again, it wasn't the same level. Like Robin was at different teams with like
mm.
all like very high achieving teams. So that's why I put him slightly ahead. I mean, Salah, what can we say about Salah, right? He's probably I love the guy. I mean, he wasn't nearly as prolific at Roma, but then yeah, I just think this one's a tough one to be honest because it could
It's
be
hard.
anyway. But when it comes to peak, I think that I have a far more kind of clear idea of who I'm gonna rank.
I think we should just do peak off the dome, see how we feel about it. So I think we agree on Bale first, right? For peak.
For peak Bale first. I mean,
Yeah.
that iconic clip of him like
Yeah.
running outside of the field, like around Mark Bartra. I mean,
I
that
think
just
he
of
has to
that
be number
alone.
one. Even at Tottenham, like the season before he went to Madrid, he was just that like that might have I don't know if that was his peak season, but he was unbelievable.
Yeah, he scored 21 Premier League goals as like a winger, like it was
For
insane.
for second, I dude, I think Ribéry comes into the conversation if we're
I
talking
put
about.
Ribery as second
Yeah,
actually.
me
So
too.
it's
Yeah, I think his peak season, that 20, what was it, 2012, 2013
yeah.
season when he was just ridiculous. I know people these days, and I've brought up goals GA with Salah, but Ribery was so much more than that. He was unbelievably fast, incredible dribbler, drag multiple players at a time. I put him second. I think he has to be.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, the thing is, we also we forget about that time that year that Bayern won the Champions League. They beat peak Barcelona or like a peak Barcelona 7-0 on aggregate in the semifinals. Like that was really
Yeah.
a huge achievement. And Ribéry again, as you said, he's not maybe the guy that will score all the goals, but he was just constantly creating problems for opposition defenses, right? So that doesn't show up in the stat sheet, but if you have to worry about some French madman tearing you up on the wing, right? You're gonna put like two or three guys on him, and that
Yeah,
automatically allows other players to flourish and to kind of become unlocked. So I think peak, you got to put Ribery. I think he was the best player in that Bayern 2013 squad.
I would agree.
Arguably should have won the Ballon d'Or that year, but
Mhm.
I don't know. It didn't end up working out. So I put Ribery second. I put as third, I actually put Salah. I don't know, like maybe that's a bit controversial, but I put him
I
third.
I would have put him. It's hard, man. When you get to third, fourth, fifth, I think I have to put Hazard third just for how good he was at his peak.
He
Um,
had his moments where he was like the best player by far in the Premier League. That's
ex
true.
but Salah, I get. But what would you? The problem is, what do you consider Salah's peak? That's the problem. Is
I
for
don't
a
know. Like
guy,
I
and
would
this is why I
consider
had
even
him.
yeah.
This is why I had him first for the career one because he's just been so good throughout his career. I don't even
No,
consider
that's
this
true.
most recent season his peak. A lot of people would because on a statistical level, it's his best season. But I don't think it's his peak season. Like it's just hard with him, you know?
Dude, I would consider it this year just because this, which like that's pretty crazy. But then other than that, like something that was very eye-opening for me is that we basically Jake and I and some other friends we did this like Premier League draft fantasy, but it
Mm.
wasn't no one participated in it, so we just basically did the draft and then just let it sit for the whole season.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so that's why like I ended up winning just because I picked Salah, right? Like he was like the only reason I won that. And so
yeah.
I just see it as like it's basically like you invest in like the S&P 500 and just
You
like
just
let
let
it
it
grow,
run. Yeah.
So it was a bit like that, right? Like I won the league by like 10 or 15 points just because Salah was every week scoring, assisting, like
Mm,
so I would say just for that reason, I would say this is probably his best season, but obviously that first season he had 2017-18 where he scored 32 league goals. Hard to
yeah.
argue against that, right? But I would say just this season he's also managed to reinvent himself, right? Like he's no longer as powerful and as explosive. He still is pretty fast, but he needs to like kind of adapt and he's still managing to do that, scoring different kind of goals. He's become more of a poacher now where a lot of
Mm,
his goals are kind of like, being in the right place. He was playing in a time where the Premier League had a lot of like good wingers and he was kind of head and shoulders above everyone else. He was also at a time where there was a lot of competition. Chelsea wasn't always the best team, but I think there's a strong argument. I put Robin fifth, which is kind of controversial
that's what I was gonna
as the
ask.
peak.
I had him there as well because I had Bale, Ribery, Hazard, Salah, Robin. But yeah.
I know it's tough. I mean, it's just because I think his peak was amazing, but I just think the other peaks were better. I mean, we all have those videos of like, we've seen those videos of John Terry talking about Hazard in the changing room, where
Yeah.
he was like not paying attention, and then they'll tell him, oh, like, yeah, and he's like, who plays
Who
for
we
West
playing?
Ham? Like,
Yeah. Two goals.
So I think I don't know. I just think it's a tough one. I would say Bale definitely has the best prime. I mean, Bale was so good in his prime, but it's it's
Yeah.
a it's a close one.
Yeah, well that's that one. I mean, what's great about this question is it's very interchangeable. I think you can make a case for any of these guys in any of the positions. It's funny that our peak one I think aligned more than the career one, but yeah, it just speaks to how good each of
Yeah.
these are. I mean, for me, five of the best wingers in history. Yeah. All right, the
I mean,
next,
definitely the best five in our lifetime.
excluding Messi and Ronaldo, yeah, and
Yeah, yeah,
Neymar,
of
and
course. But like,
Neymar, to be honest.
yeah.
I didn't include Neymar on this list because I thought it would be too lopsided. But yeah, if you remove those
Yeah,
three,
exactly.
I would agree. All right, so the next one is to rank these five strikers at their peak. This is similar. We're not going to do career. We're doing pure peak for these guys. And it's Edison Cavani, Carlos Tevez, Radamel Falcao, Gonzalo Higuain, and Diego Costa. And I'm curious about this one because there's a lot of different ways you can take it.
Okay, I've done mine. Mine's kind of a bit controversial, I think, but
I think mine might
yeah.
be even more so than yours. So let's get it
So this is
started.
my in my list. I put Radamel Falcao number one,
Oh, you
Gonzalo
agree?
Higuain number two, Diego
Okay.
Costa number three,
Yeah.
Cavani four, and Tevez five.
Oh, what?
So let's start
Okay.
with
Okay.
what about
Let me
yours? Can you read it out?
yeah, I've got Falcao first, Tevez second, Higuain third, Costa fourth, and Cavani fifth. Um, I do want to start by saying one thing. I'm very happy we agree about Falcao. I did not expect that to happen. I think that speaks to how much of a gunman this guy was. Not just a gunman, just an unbelievable player he was at his peak. I mean, that Atletico stretch of what was it, 2 years? When we're talking about a peak of a striker, Falcao, man, like yeah, all types of goals. In the air, he was lethal. Right foot, left foot, dribbling. I had to put him first just because he was a freak of nature.
Yeah, agreed. Number one, I think it's pretty uncontroversial. I mean, there was that 3 year stretch. I would even take in the last year at Porto. He scored like 16
Yeah,
goals or 18 goals in the Europa League, which is absolutely insane. And he was just scoring like in every possible way, as you said, right? Like he was an amazing header of the ball, but he also scored like bangers from like 25 meters. I don't know. I
yeah,
just think he was a problem, those two. And people forget because of how much he fell off when he then moved to Chelsea United, right? He had that big ACL injury famously. So I
yeah.
think that kind of detracts from
Unfortunate.
his legacy, but he was so good.
Yeah, I'm curious about Tevez. You put Tevez last?
I put him last, yeah,
Okay,
because
I'm
just
curious to
because
hear.
I
I
think
put
the
him
peak,
second, man, but I
well,
don't
I
know
just think
what's
because of the peak, the others were like on top of him. So I mean, I put him. He's a great player, Tevez, and I think over his career, he's probably better than a lot of these players. But his peak, I mean, I put Higuain second. I mean, you can't argue with 36 league goals in the Serie A, a league
so.
that's not the easiest to score
Mhm.
in.
Do you
Then he
consider?
went to Juventus. Sorry?
Sorry to interrupt you. I'm just curious. For you, Higuain's peak season then was the last season at Napoli before he went to
Yes.
Juventus.
I would
Okay.
say so. I mean, just
Okay.
he almost won Napoli the league, like when their team was not nearly as good as the as that Juventus team. 36 goals in 37 games, like that was an insane achievement. And then it's shown by the fact that Juventus was like, we're gonna pay 94 million euros
Yeah.
for the best player in the league, just paying his release clause, stealing him from the second best team. So I have to put him second, even though he then fell off. But I don't know, what's your argument for Tevez second? I'm just curious.
For Tevez, it's tough. I think it's pers I probably consider his peak that first season at Manchester City, after the big move from United. Um, Part of what he has going for him is how versatile he is. When he played with with Rooney and Ronaldo. I know that was the Man United time, but he was one of those guys who could play anywhere across the front three on his day. But then when he went to Man City, he became the main man, and he was scoring loads of goals in the Premier League. He was one of those players that you just, I don't know, as a Premier League fan, you hated coming up against. You thought, okay, I'm coming up against my team's coming up against Tevez. How is he going to find a way to score this time? You know? And I think he really had that going for him. I know we're talking about a peak of a peak, but then arguably at Juventus as well, he was unbelievable. He was only there for 2 seasons, but he was scoring loads of goals, not just in the Serie A, but also in, the continental tournaments and the domestic cups. Yeah, I don't know, because of the fear factor that was Carlos Tevez, I kind of edged him to second, but I put Higuain third, for the same reasons you explained. It's very close between the two. Higuain, a lot of people will joke about his misses,
Yeah.
not just for Argentina, but he also had some terrible misses when he played for Real Madrid as well. But if we take that aside and you take him coming into Juventus out of shape, all of those memes aside, we're talking about uh insane goal scorer. Um, I'm really happy you didn't put Costa last. I know this is a separate, topic,
Mm.
but Diego Costa, I put fourth. You had him fourth as well, no?
I had him third actually.
You had him third, actually. Okay, you had him higher than I did. Yeah. For me,
Well,
it was,
yeah, yeah, just because,
yeah,
yeah.
go
What
for it.
would you say his peak was? Would you say it's that last season at Atleti or like the first two at Chelsea or like a combination? Like, where would you kind of
I'd say it's
put
that
that?
stretch. It depends what you consider a peak, but I'd say that stretch from the last season at Atleti to when he came to Chelsea. Because he was a
Yeah,
freak at Atleti. But at Chelsea, what I can speak to is his time at Chelsea. Diego Costa is very much, even compared to the rest of these guys, the traditional number nine, the big man
yeah,
up top, holding off defenders. When your team's in a dire situation, fucking lump it to the striker, see what he can do. But apart from that, I mean, he was a great hold-up play. He was actually a good passer of the ball as well. He facilitated a lot for our wingers when he was there. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'd probably consider his peak Chelsea, but you could make an argument for either.
yeah. He was a great player. That I mean, that last season at Atleti he got injured in the Champions League final. That was maybe one of the big reasons why they lost that game as well. With Chelsea, I mean, that season where you won under Mourinho in 2015, he was unplayable, scored like over 20 league goals, and he was so good. Even in the
Even
season you
under
won
Conte
with
as
Conte, I mean,
well.
he had a
Yeah.
fight with Conte like halfway through the season, and you still won the league because you were so far ahead thanks to
It's
his
so
performances.
toxic. Yeah. Yeah. I
So I would
I
say
put
him. Then I would, yeah. Do you put
so
him above Cavani though, right?
I put him above Cavani. I did want to speak on that because I think Cavani's one of those guys I always really liked. Even when he was at PSG. A lot of PSG fans, by the way, consider him their GOAT, at least for strikers. It's been a messy breakup with the whole Mbappe situation, but a lot of PSG fans, I can say, as someone who lives in Paris, a lot of PSG fans adore Cavani, and I think they have a reason to do so. For me, his peak was at Napoli. It wasn't at PSG. His peak was his best years were when he was playing for Napoli. But his number one quality was his movement, and
Mm.
at least that's what I see. I think he was great. His movement was unreal, and obviously his category of goals is great. I just put him a bit less because I think if we're talking about that like prime of a striker, he didn't instill fear the way the other ones did, but he's still phenomenal in his own right.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Like he was such a good player. I mean, his last season at Napoli he scored something like 26 league goals, like a insane number. And he was big, powerful, like his movement was amazing. Technically, he was also not terrible. Like he could do some stuff. So, but I think just yeah, I put him slightly above Tevez just because I think his actual peak seasons were higher than Tevez's peak seasons. As a player, I would put Tevez ahead just because he accomplished more, he was more scrappy. And also, I put him ahead because I had the chance to see him more in Serie A. I mean, Tevez was in Serie A for only like th 2 seasons, so it was
Mm.
a pretty short time. He did well in those 2 seasons, granted, but I think Cavani, like he tore up Serie A in a time where Juventus was really dominating. Then yeah, he went to PSG, and I mean he was still very good at PSG. He was there were some years where he scored like more goals than played games, right? Which is always an insane achievement in the modern game. But
Yeah.
I don't
I,
know. Yeah, it's
I will
close.
say to give him a little bit of credit at PSG, I'm not trying to diminish his accomplishments at PSG. He was still great. He was also forced to play out of position. He was forced to play left wing for a long time because Ibra was playing striker and PSG didn't play a two striker formation. So that adaptability was good. Yeah, I, yeah, I think he was great. I just put him last, for the reasons I said, but you can rearrange this as you would.
Yeah, and then I mean when Ibra left PSG, he moved back to the central spot and like took off again with the goals, right? So
Yeah,
it
he
was
did.
definitely a case of him playing out of position. So yeah, thanks for watching. This is the first episode of the Dead Pundit Society. So I hope you enjoyed it. Wanted to start off with just some small rankings, trying to make it as interesting as possible, just because otherwise if it's something that has too much that's kind of too easy to do, it maybe doesn't foster as much of a conversation. But yeah, thanks for watching.
Yeah, thank you guys. This was the first one, hopefully of many. It's an experiment for Pablo and I. We're both big football fans. We wanted to, take that to another platform. Hopefully it was entertaining. If you agree with us, disagree with us, that's, what football is all about. So we appreciate, all of the interactions. Feel free to leave comments, give feedback, and hopefully we'll see you next time for another interesting topic.